Hey Lorraine, it's great to chat to you today, and I'm very excited about all the tips you're going to be sharing with us. But before we get into that, if you can maybe just quickly introduce yourself to everyone so they know a little bit about you and who you are.
So my name's Laure Kirsten-Otto, and my background is psychology as well as NLP. And then I've added the skill sets of meditation to that. And my main focus is teaching people how to use their minds, how to hack their emotions. And I focus predominantly in the space of children. I also work with a couple of adults, but at the moment it's majority kids. So teaching kids how to manage big emotions and how to overcome them so that it doesn't derail them, all the emotions that they experience.
And I'm glad that you've mentioned that because, first of all, just from a personal point of view, I think many of us are starting to feel the impact of lockdown and being in confinement. Just the sort of the daily struggle of managing kids if you have them and their schooling, so having to become a teacher, trying to manage work-life integration, so trying to do work as well as home in a confined space. I mean, not everybody has the luxury of a big house where they can have their own rooms or studies or offices to work from. Some people are cooped up in like a two-bedroom apartment, as an example. And then on top of that, relationships as well, and then self-care, being in confinement, it getting to you not being able to move, that whole loss of movement, freedom, identity, etc. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on in us at the moment. So just from a personal level and individual level, I mean, you are a mom. How are you finding it at the moment with just being a mom, first of all, and then now trying to be a teacher and adding that to your resume?
It's been quite challenging, I must say. It hasn't been as easy as what I'd hoped it would have been, but we're getting there. So one of the initiatives that we've put together is we've got together a couple of the moms, and because the kids are really craving social interaction, we're fortunate enough to have access to an online platform. So we're getting the kids together at 8 o'clock every morning, and then one mom will take them through the lessons for the day. So one, it gives the other moms a break a little bit in between, and you can focus on your own work. And the other thing is you tend to be a bit more patient with other people's children than you are with your own. So that's also helpful. And then the kids can also share ideas. So that I found has been very valuable, because it's quite a skill set to learn to interact with teams and interact with other people, and when you especially around solving problems. So my little girl's only 8, but it's something that I'm finding is probably going to stand her in good stead going forward, because it's teamwork, and it's teaching them how to interact in a digital world, because this is the way of the future, I think, in terms of future careers and things. I think a lot of people are going to be working in a space of maybe online going forward and indefinitely. So it's a valuable skill set. So as much as what it's been challenging for us, I'm kind of grateful that she's being exposed to this so that she can develop a whole new way of thinking. Yeah.
And, you mentioned the different ages of kids, and, a lot of, particularly younger kids, they don't have the mental or emotional maturity and vocabulary to express what's going on for them. How have you been finding this, or what tips could you share in terms of how do we deal with the younger kids and getting them to understand why they can't go to school or why they can't play with their friends?
Okay, so it's important to remember, especially with the littlies, that they don't have so our cerebral cortex, which is the outer cortex, or the outer part of the brain. It's our most developed. It's sort of the most evolved part of the brain, and it's the place that's responsible for our reasoning, our emotional regulation, self-awareness, and that only develops completely by the age of 21. So our kids don't, in terms of the actual physical things that they need to regulate their emotions, that they're still learning. And ways to teach them how to do that is, so you can't outthink an emotion. You have to hack an emotion with another emotion. So if you're trying to reason with an emotional child, good luck. So the best way to do that is to teach them how to move that emotion. So in a space of where they can express themselves. So there's a lot of online things going on at the moment in terms of YouTube videos where there's dancing and movement, and people are offering free exercise classes and free dance and emotional expression. So one of the ways to do that, and that's what I've been doing with Caitlin, is daily we have a session where she jumps around, bounces about, so she can just move some of that energy out of her body. And then the other ways of doing it is art, expression, letting them sing. I know it's a bit crazy. Everybody's trying to do meetings in between, and finding space in between the day where they're able to express that is a good way of letting, just move the emotion out of their bodies, because it's energy at the end of this. You don't want them to kind of bottle it up. You need them to move it up. So yeah, just finding ways where they can actually just get rid of the energy within the confinements of the lockdown at the moment. So yeah, and play is also a very important part for kids. Playing is a way that they move emotion too, and it's a way of sorting out for them. When a kid plays, you'll often hear their talk called self-talk. It's eventually the talk that goes into your head, but when they're little, that self-talk is a way of problem solving for them. So play as possible will help.
Yeah, I mean, there's also that, you mentioned an important thing about play, and I think even as adults, we learn best when we're having fun. And
absolutely.
And I've seen quite a few creative ways of how parents or teachers are trying to teach kids in a playful way. I saw an example the other day where someone had taken, I think it was pieces of paper or cardboard, and drawn letters on them, like big Scrabble boards or words or tiles, if you want to call them. And they were playing a big game of Scrabble outside as a way of teaching the kids spelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And bingo's a nice way to, if they're a little bit older. We've been playing bingo and Pictionary with words, and just trying to incorporate as much play into their learning as possible, because the more you access your right brain, the quicker you learn, and the concepts stick because you're using pictures and creative ways of learning.
Now, when it comes to the way kids are trying to learn now in terms of remote teaching and learning and through digital devices and platforms, that what have you found that's working or not working? I mean, I've heard some people saying that there's a lot of pressure being placed on kids now in terms of having to use devices to learn and technology to learn, but that it's also at the same time impacting amount of screen time that kids are spending on screen during the day.
Look, I'm not a big fan of kind of sticking your kids in front of a computer or a TV screen as a form of entertainment, but I'm also not 100% against it, because we are in a world where we have to keep up with the times. This is the way of the future, especially given our current circumstances. We need to be able to use technology. So I think if there's a fine balance, if they're having to, like my child, she's probably spending 4 hours a day at the moment in front of her screen in MS Teams, working with her classmates. So after that, we kind of say, right, you've had enough screen time for the day. Go and play, go and do, use your other skills and play in other ways. But I do allow her later on in the day to play. She likes reasoning games and things that she can kind of problem solve. So I'm okay with that. But I think we need to just give ourselves a little bit of a break. We kind of trying to create these perfect children, and right now there's so many other things that we've got to think about. So I think if we can just, for our own, and not be so hard on ourselves as parents, and realize that we're doing the best we can right now. So if your kids may be doing a little bit more screen time than what you hope, you want, you'd prefer them to be, just kind of, this is not going to be forever. And to bear in mind that we are teaching them other skills that they're going to be using in the future. So it's not all bad. But just to find that balance within the situations we find ourselves in at the moment, I think is key.
I mean, you mentioned other skills, and I think that's something that we really need to remind ourselves of, is what are the life skills that we're teaching our kids right now. So, for example, creativity, resilience, all those kind of things. Someone I was speaking to, they've actually implemented lockdown money, as they call it, where they've created currency, and they've used it to reward and incentivize their kids for obviously doing things, whether it be chores or homework or schoolwork, etc. And so they can buy things like screen time. They can buy so they've implemented a makeshift tuck shop at home, obviously some sweets and stuff. And through this, they're teaching the kids to weigh up choices and decisions. If I spend my lockdown money that I've earned, do I spend it on screen time or do I spend it on buying sweets? And what is that going to give me in terms of the reward, and how long is that reward going to last? So I think there's some very important life skills we're teaching kids right now.
Absolutely, and that's a very creative way of dealing with lockdown. It's awesome.
Yeah. And to value.
I've also found, sorry.
To value.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I've also found, as much as what lockdowns had us all a little bit, I mean, there have been days where we've all kind of felt the frustration, but I find that Caitlin's a little bit more involved in cooking, and she's showing more of an interest. So it hasn't all been negative. There's been lots of positives as well. We're far more involved in one another's lives because we have to be, and our bond has become a bit stronger. So she's kind of been helping me with the cooking, and she's showing an interest more because she has to. There's not much else to do, so it's actually been really, really good, you know. So there's lots of creative ways of including them in your life as well. So and teaching them. The other thing that I found is teaching her the value of, so mom needs to go and sit and work now. You need to find a space to entertain yourself. So boundaries within confinement has also been something that we've been exploring. So that's also been a positive in that way.
Yeah.
Obviously the little guys it's a little bit harder because they need kind of constant attention. But yeah, with Caitlin, certainly it's been a space where we've kind of had to regulate. Okay, mom needs alone time now, and you need alone time now, and it's been good. It's been good for us to learn how to do that in a lockdown situation.
Now, boundaries is a big topic that comes up in a lot of the conversations that I'm having. First of all, boundaries from a self-care point of view, boundaries in terms of children parenting, boundaries in terms of managing work-life integration. So let's talk first from a parenting point of view. In terms of obviously having to put those kind of boundaries in place, and how do you enforce them? And then second of all, how do you as a parent deal with your own emotions when you're starting to feel frustrated, or you just can't manage the kids anymore?
So parenting comes with a lot of guilt. And that's kind of, somebody one day, a couple of years ago said to me, you give birth to guilt. And I was still like, okay. But yes, it comes with a lot of, am I doing the right thing? Am I? And I think the most important thing to remember is you can't give from an empty cup. So it's okay. It's okay to put down those boundaries and say, listen, I need half an hour a day where I just need to go and lie in the bath or have a cup of coffee by myself, and I'm going to close myself into the room, and you need to entertain yourself, obviously, and making sure they're safe and all of those things. But it's okay to teach them that people are allowed personal space. And it's very difficult right now, but teaching the kids learn by example. And if you teach them that it's okay to put boundaries down, it's okay to say, listen, I need a bit of me time. This is a time where I need a bit of space where I need to be able to focus just on me and regroup and get myself together again. You're teaching them a valuable skill in the end. So it's okay. I think it's just to remember that it's okay. It's okay to do that. And obviously not go stir crazy and scream and shout, but in a way that is non-emotional.
Yeah.
As non-emotional as possible.
And what tips would you give to parents? And I'm thinking particularly single parents.
I think if you can get your child especially if you're a single parent. I mean, that's very hard to put down, to find the space in your daytime to get 5 minutes to yourself. But I think if you can get your child busy with an activity or coloring this page for mom for 5 minutes, let mommy just kind of go and have a bath or whatever. I think it's about how creative you are, keeping them as busy as possible, but allowing them independence. One of the biggest things that you can teach your child is how to entertain themselves. And somebody once said to me that there's something called a positive way of a positive level of neglect, and I still thought, sure, that's quite a horrible thing to, but it's teaching that you're okay to do this on your own. It gives them confidence in their own skills. Helicopter parents, and I tend to be a helicopter mom, so it's very hard, and it's a very fine balance to try and achieve, to not be over involved in their life because you want to protect them, but giving them the confidence in their own skills, that you're okay to be alone for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, depending on the age of the child, or half an hour or an hour as the older they get. You're okay. You're okay. You can cope on your own. You can be in a space where you don't need somebody else with you the whole time. And that in turn teaches them skills in the future in terms of relationships, because a lot of us feel like we're only okay when you're in a relationship, and it's not the case. You should be okay with yourself first. You should be okay with being in your own space and being comfortable with yourself. And so it's those kind of things that I think we mold as children, that'll teach them valuable skills as they get older.
And I'm glad you've raised that point about the positive neglect part, as you called it. And I love that phrase. Actually, it's I'm gonna steal that and use it going forward, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
But yeah, I mean, we are teaching, by doing that, we're actually teaching children to have a healthy relationship with self first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is critical and key for when we get into adulthood, because when we have a healthy relationship with ourselves, we will tend to put ourselves less and less into positions where we start compromising ourselves. So, for example, the need to be with someone to feel whole and feel complete. So putting ourselves into relationships that are unhealthy and toxic, as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more comfortable you are, the more you are on your own, the more you get to know yourself. And that's the part that for me is a very valuable, because for example, in my life, I only really got to know myself in my 30s. And I know it comes with maturity and that type of thing, but I think there were a lot of skills that I had to learn later on in life that I wish that I'd learned when I was younger. I wish that I'd learned how to work with my emotions, how to not let my emotions derail me. And maybe it's part of growing up and it's part of the process. But I think if we can teach those kind of skills from a very young age, specifically in the space of mindfulness, teaching kids how to overcome emotions that can derail you. So, and in the end, when you're not feeling safe, how your defense mechanisms kick in, because that's where it counts. That's where growth happens, is learning that we actually have a choice. We have a choice on how we feel about situations, and that it doesn't have to be an automatic thing, that we can choose how to behave in different situations, and in that way we grow our behavioral repertoire and we become more flexible, and we're able to it's a massive self-development space to learn that you don't have to choose an automatic response the whole time. You can actually choose a different way of responding to the same triggers or the same situation that triggers a certain emotion in you.
And I think where a lot of parents are potentially struggling, especially single parents that don't have that support structure in place. On those days where you're just really feeling frazzled and everything is just getting to you and you feel like you're losing it completely, what are sort of 2 or 3 tips or tricks that parents or adults could use to kind of help self-regulate those emotions?
So I think the first thing is to acknowledge the emotion. we're all allowed to feel not okay every now and then, as long as you don't get stuck there. And for me, it's about acknowledging it so that you can move through it. So what we tend to do, and it's part of the way we socialize, is we squash negative emotions. We tend to feel like we're not allowed to acknowledge them, that we're not acknowledge them, we don't want to feel them, so we try and suppress them. So I think the first part is to acknowledge it and to say it's okay. And it comes back to self-care, of taking some time out to take what you need for yourself. But more importantly, I think I think I mentioned earlier, you can't outthink an emotion. You hack an emotion with another emotion. So finding ways to remind yourself that this is not forever, something that's not going to be here for forever. And it sounds really silly, and I know this is the kind of advice that most of these gurus give, but gratitude helps. So taking every moment and flicking it and going, okay, so maybe I'm stuck in this house. I use music. I'll often put this. One of my songs is Juicy Wiggle. It's got zero subs to get energy up. And if Caitlin's driving me nuts and I'm going crazy, what I normally do is I put the music on and we dance it out. And 5-10 minutes later, you're feeling really good about yourself. You're laughing, and it's about flicking those moments. It's taking those moments and trying to turn them into something positive, and focusing on the space where you've got things to be grateful for. But I think it starts with acknowledging them. So not trying to suppress them, trying to find ways to flip them into a space where you can actually focus on the good stuff, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I think people underestimate how much movement can shift emotions. And I think when we talk movement, people are thinking like huge exercise, like running, gym, whatever, but it could just be as simple as taking a walk around the garden if you have one, or a balcony, or just even into another room in your house.
Absolutely. Yeah, change of scenery, even if it's just into the garden put your feet on the grass, take 5 minutes just to sit there and just breathe in nature. I know maybe not everybody's got access to that, but just getting a bit of fresh air, jiggling around, moving, just anything that gets the mind and the body and the soul are all connected, and your mind is very much influenced by your body. So if you can find ways to move your body, you will shift your mind, because it's moving energy. It's moving the feelings of frustration out. The minute you move energy, and emotions are energy in motion. So it's a way of trying to find, a way to move that energy out, and not let it get stuck, because that's when we explode and we go stir crazy sometimes.
And another thing that a lot of people are grappling with right now is this whole, on the one hand, I'm working longer hours than I normally would have if I was going to the office, because there's that sort of start and end of when I leave the office, I get home. But now those lines are being blurred, where work hours are creeping into evenings potentially, or longer work days on the one hand. And then the other is, just people are starting to really feel that, I can't hold up this mask, or this pretense of everything's okay and I'm okay and I'm coping, when inside I know I'm not.
Okay, so I think it comes back down to self-care, and one way of caring for yourself is acknowledging that it's okay not to be okay every now and then. We've got these expectations, where we socialize again. We want to be perfect, and sometimes it can become quite debilitating. So you've got this expectation, and it's something that I struggle with. So it's very close to my heart. You've got this expectation of, you have this picture of what it should be like, and sometimes you don't even know how to get there, so you just don't try, and then you put yourself under more pressure. So I think if we can remember that 60-70% is good right now, and it's better than nothing. And if even if you're achieving 50% in all areas of your life right now, I think it's okay to just get through the day and get stuff done, rather than trying to be absolutely perfect in every sphere at this point in time. It'll get back to that place where we can all be high achievers again. But for now, coping within the confines of what's happening around us and finding ways to, it doesn't have to be 100% in every area. I think it's about giving yourself that kind of acknowledgement that it's okay not to be 100% in every area right now, and just trying to find spaces where you can give yourself a break, because this is hard enough already. And stress has an inverse, a very negative effect on motivation and drive. And the higher your stress, the lower your drive. So, and I don't think we're going to understand the impact of how much stress we're under until we're actually out of this. Right now, there's so much to think about: for the impact on business, the impact on economy. Am I going to have a job? Those things are very heavy right now. So I think give yourself a break and just acknowledge that you're a lot more stressed than what you think you are.
I think you make some very valid points that right now it's just a very fine line of trying to get through the day, but also just that it's okay to not be okay. And it's, if I just manage to get one thing done today, that in itself is an achievement. And if I need to take some time out just because I'm not coping, and then that's also okay. And just stop putting pressure and expectation on ourselves.
I saw a lovely quote the other day on one of the social media platforms where they said, stop judging yourself at the moment about how productive you are, but how present you are. And I think that's key. Presence is when you are not thinking, you're not stressing about the future, you're not freaking out about the past, you're just in the moment trying to do the best you can.
I think that's awesome, and yeah, you've shared some great insights. So thanks for that, and yeah, hopefully we all come out of this period with a whole new sort of mind shift as to what's valuable to us. So quality of life and people versus what's important, like material things and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.